Hi, this is Dan Sanderson again on behalf of Woodcrafters. I am working on the second portion of what I'm guessing is going to be a three-part video series on the importing function for purchase orders of the controller, or importing function of the controller for purchase orders from Energy. Previously, we went over some difficulties of updating dates, and specifically at the beginning of that video, I noted that it's impossible to tell here which partially received invoices or partially received purchase orders that I have tied an invoice to for this export function. So I was thinking about it while I was uploading the other video. It might be really easy and really helpful if you basically, and I don't know if maybe you'd create another column with just a export or something, but I guess I'm envisioning if I was to go into this partially received invoice or partially received purchase order, I open it up and I'm going to go ahead and put in the invoice that I received, and then maybe just a checkbox, something that says like export today, or I don't know, just export. Might be really easy. So as your accountant, or in my case me, is going through and putting invoices in, even if the purchase order is partially received, then when I'm done, going through 30 invoices, I can see, okay, that one, and that one need exported, and I don't just have to rely on this reconciled thing. I did think about adding an additional status, but it just seems messy. So I kind of, with the status thing, I think it's pretty good where it's at. I think adding more statuses are just going to cause a little bit more confusion and everything. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and do the first of what I told you is 2 exports, because I export partially received invoices as a second step, simply because I can't find that. I'm going to export one invoice right now for speed. I'll tell you the import of purchase orders into QuickBooks, and I'm pretty sure it's a QuickBooks fault. Usually is, because QuickBooks is just slow. It takes a long time. So for instance, this time I'm going to go to PO 100677, and that is for Hallmark Building Supplies. This was a single purchase order, or a purchase order of 2 sinks, so 1 item. I can tell you, and maybe I've got my screen set up differently or incorrectly. It doesn't look like it. I would really like for the total cost, or I guess a column, to say received cost, because for instance, we wrote this purchase order for $868. We got charged a Corian freight charge of $50, and that's been input, but there's nowhere on this screen that it shows up. So when I'm going through this, it's kind of a nice double check that if I'm looking at each purchase order, I go there and oh, that number doesn't match. Well, is there a problem there before I bother pulling it into QuickBooks? So let's see, 868. There's that received total cost. It'd be really nice if there was a column that showed that. So anyways, I'm trying to go here, going to export. All right, now when I export, I'm currently having a problem, which I'll demonstrate, but I'm currently having a problem with the freight charges. It throws an error. Now, Dan and I are working on this. We've been working on it for a really long time, and he says it works fine on his QuickBooks. And I have to keep sending him snapshots of my GL account and everything, or my account listing. Every time I get into this, it's really difficult to try to keep working and try to resolve that issue. So I have a workaround right now. It's not very fun, but just throwing it out there. So I opened this up specifically because I need to find out if the person inputting it, which in this case they tied freight to it, and freight errors out for me. So a lot of times I'll go through here and I'll see, did they put the freight on here, which from my understanding is when they wrote the purchase order. So one of our project managers does, the other one a lot of times doesn't. So now I'm going to go to items, and I need to make sure that that item is checked as expense upon receipt, because we expense everything upon receipt. So I'm going to change that to true. The other, I guess, option would be to go into the purchase orders, open the purchase order, go to items, go to edit, and then click each of them as expense upon receipt. I'm kind of thinking there might be an option in materials to just select everything and modify it as expense upon receipt. The problem with that is there is a max of 100 materials that you can edit. So there that is. So there's a max of 100 materials that you can edit. So I would need to do that 48 times, and maybe I should just bite the bullet and do that 48 times, but I haven't. So there's where we're at. All right, so back to this. I changed that to true, so it comes through correct. All of this seems correct. Just trying to show you kind of where we're at. Receipts. There's our received shipping unit cost. And this does have a GL account tied to it. So now we're going to go ahead and do the import. So I've changed that to expense upon receipt. The reason, keep in mind, I may have 30 purchase orders that I export, and I can just change one to true and then drag it down, and it'll change every single item for me. So I've got QuickBooks open. I'm going to go ahead and go to my vendor center just so that we can kind of see what's going on. That was for Hallmark. But anyways, I'm going to go to import purchase orders. That's today. And I'm going to open. So it's going to process this. Now that's one line item. Again, if this worked flawlessly, it's probably not a big deal, because I could do that and walk away and spend 2 hours working on other stuff. So right here you see there's an invalid reference to QuickBooks expense line account reference vendor freight charge. So I will go to our chart of accounts, and I will tell you that that should be a 50, I think. Vendor freight charge. That's a 5070 vendor freight charge. And as far as I've been able to tell, they're spelled the same. They're laid out the same. I can't find anything that I'm doing wrong, I guess. I'm just not sure. Maybe it's the fact that mine's a cost of goods sold instead of an expense account. I think Dan and I have kind of gone over this, and I just can't seem to figure out what's wrong. So anyways, that happened. So when that happens, then I go to our vendor, and I will go to Hallmark Building Supplies, and this is the workaround that I've done for this. Go ahead and make that full screen. And I need to go find the item receipt that has a $0 value. So I'm going to double check that that's my invoice number, 1515445. So in that case, I will actually do this. So I'll open that up, and I'll copy that. And then I'll get out of here, and typically I would delete it, which I'm going to go ahead and do. Now in QuickBooks, there's no easy way to delete purchase orders or item receipts. You have to open each one and hit delete. So you got to do that. All right, so now I go to the purchase order, and it pulled that item in fine, which is confusing to me when it errored out on the freight, and then the item receipt didn't pull that item in. So now I would create item receipts, and then you got to click somewhere. You say, yeah, I want to open up one of the existing purchase orders, which is the one I just had open. Hit OK, and then you'd say, yeah, I want to receive that. I would paste that in there, and then I copy that and I paste that in there. Then I need to mark the invoice date, which was, it looks like 10/1. So that is actually correct. And then I would change my total. Now, since I changed my total and it's having problems with freight, and I try to say save and close, it's going to say it's not in balance. So now I need to modify this to 918, and then that throws off my item cost a lot. And now, of course, it's not recognized in my 50/70 vendor freight charge. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. Actually, let me take a step back. I would save and close and then do I would hit bill received, and then I would go ahead and save it, and that would be the bill that's actually created. I'm going to go ahead and delete this because we're going to go back through this, and I'm going to show you how to do it with, or how I do it while actually getting the import function to work. So I want to say no, no, and I'm going to close this, and I will delete this purchase order. Alright, in order to get it to work accurately, what I would typically do is, again, I go through and I make sure that there is no freight charge in the Excel spreadsheet, and I would change the receipts. Sorry, let me see. I'd get rid of this one, and I would say that's $0, and then I would take 50 and divide it by the quantity received and add it to the received unit cost in order to prevent the import difficulty. I don't do this in energy because I'm kind of hoping that this is resolved soon, and I want my energy document to actually reflect that I spent this much on freight and I spent this much on items. So I kind of keep a separation there. So anyways, this is going to be changed by $25, so that's going to be $459. And I'll go ahead and save this again. And then I will do the import function. And I'm trying to hustle through because we're running out of time on the recording. But there you go. Everything went through fine. There's the purchase order. There's the item receipt. Worked flawlessly. Fantastic. I'd come through and double check and say, okay, bill received. And then save and close. I really do not like importing the purchase orders. I wish there was a way we could get rid of that because it just leads to clutter in our accounting. So a lot of times, once a month or so, I'll go through and I'll delete any existing purchase orders because we don't receive them in QuickBooks technically. I think that's it for this video. I will do another demonstration with the second video, or with the third video, and maybe even a fourth. So I'm going to stop this one. Thank you.